Marcus Aurelius wakes up in his palace. The most powerful man on earth starts his morning routine. But instead of reaching for a toothbrush and minty paste, he grabs a cup filled with urine. He swirls it around his mouth like mouthwash. This isn't madness. This is medicine. The year is 161 AD. Rome rules half the world. Their armies are unstoppable. Their buildings touch the sky. Yet their daily habits would make you sick to your stomach. However, what is truly ironic is that they believed they were being clean. Every morning, millions of Romans did things that would land them in jail today. They shared dirty water. They wiped themselves with communal sponges. They ate rotten fish sauce on everything. They smiled as they engaged in the activity, proudly displaying teeth that had been cleaned with urine. But the Romans weren't stupid. They built roads that still exist today. They created laws we still follow. They invented concrete. So why did they do such gross things? The answer will shock you, because many of their disgusting habits actually worked. Let's start with that urine toothpaste. Sounds horrible, right? But Roman teeth were often whiter and stronger than ours. The ammonia in urine actually kills bacteria. It removes stains. Modern dentists have tested this. They don't recommend it, but it works. The Romans discovered this by accident. Wealthy Romans even imported urine from Portugal. They believed Portuguese pee is the best pee for dental care. They paid gold for jars of this liquid. Even back then, some Romans thought it was gross. But peer pressure is powerful. When everyone at the bathhouse is doing it, you do it too. Speaking of bathhouses, Romans bathed together every single day. Sounds clean, right? Wrong. These weren't like modern pools with chlorine and filters. Hundreds of sweaty, dirty people soaked in the same water all day long. The water never got changed. Think about that. The same water that cleaned a gladiator's wounds also cleaned a senator's feet. But wait, it gets worse. Romans didn't have soap. Instead, they covered themselves in olive oil. Then they scraped it off with a metal tool called a strigil. This pulled off dirt, sweat, and dead skin. The oil mixed with all this grime created a brown paste. And here's the kicker. This paste was considered valuable. Athletes sold their body scrapings to fans. People bought it like we buy celebrity perfume today. Rich Roman women rubbed gladiator sweat on their faces. They thought it would make them beautiful. They paid huge amounts for small jars of this mixture. Imagine walking into Sephora and asking for essence of sweaty fighter. That's exactly what they did. But Romans had an even stranger beauty secret. They whitened their skin with lead powder. The paler you looked, the richer you seemed. Dark skin meant you worked outside like a slave. So wealthy women painted their faces with a deadly metal. Many got lead poisoning. Their hair fell out. Their brains got damaged. Some died. But hey, they looked fashionable while doing it. Men weren't much better. They plucked out all their body hair with tweezers. Every single hair. Roman men spent hours each day pulling hair from their arms, legs, and chest. They thought hairy men looked like barbarians. Smooth skin meant civilization. The pain must have been incredible. But Roman men endured it to look proper. Now here's where things get really twisted. You think their personal hygiene was bad? Wait until you hear about their toilets. The Romans invented the first public restrooms. Sounds progressive? These weren't private stalls. They were long marble benches with holes cut out. 20 or 30 people sat side by side, doing their business together. They chatted while they pooped. They made business deals. They gossiped about their neighbors. But the worst part wasn't the lack of privacy. It was what they used instead of toilet paper. Romans shared a communal sponge on a stick. One sponge for everyone. They dipped it in a bucket of salt water between uses. That's it. No washing, no replacing. Just rinse and pass it to the next person. The same sponge that cleaned your neighbor's mess now cleans yours. Disease spread like wildfire through these bathrooms. But Romans didn't understand germs. They thought bad smells caused illness, so they burned incense to cover up the unpleasant smells. They assumed the problem was resolved. In reality, deadly bacteria jumped from person to person through that shared sponge. Yet somehow, this system worked for centuries. Why? Because Romans were surprisingly organized about their grossness. They had schedules for everything. Rich people went to clean bathhouses in the morning. Poor people used them after work. They had different times for men and women. They had rules about behavior. It was disgusting, but it was organized disgusting. But the real secret to Roman survival wasn't their schedules. It was their food. Romans ate things that would make modern health inspectors faint. Their favorite condiment was garum. This was fish guts left to rot in the sun for months. The liquid that oozed out was bottled and sold like ketchup. Every Roman kitchen had jars of this stuff. However, there is an interesting aspect to consider. Garum was actually healthy. The rotting process created natural antibiotics. The high salt content killed dangerous bacteria. The fish provided protein and nutrients. Roman soldiers marched thousands of miles eating food covered in this gunk. They stayed strong and healthy. Meanwhile, their enemies ate cleaner food and got sick more often. The real lesson of Roman daily life isn't that ancient people were gross. It's that every generation thinks they've figured out the right way to live. Every culture believes their customs make perfect sense. Every society assumes their enemies and ancestors were the weird ones. The methods change. The goals remain constant. Romans used urine toothpaste and shared toilet sponges, but they wanted the same things you want: clean teeth, working bathrooms, and a legacy worth leaving behind. They just had different ideas about how to achieve these universal human desires. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be incredibly grateful for a like and subscribe. This is actually my very first video on this brand new channel, so your support would truly mean the world to me. I'm passionate about bringing you fascinating historical content, and I have so many exciting stories planned for the coming weeks. Thank you so much for watching.